As Jace's breathing brought BC into a slumbering sleep, hers did the same for him, and the house became as still as the air outside. The night drew on, and the forest sounds grew and digressed from itself, almost building what seemed like a hushed orchestra on the cold, never-changing sky. The egg was placed soundly next to the bed beside Zen, who was muttering words of sandy beaches, sunscreen, and pampered feet. Sid's eyes opened from the short rest and an uncomfortable position. Tapping the bag, it moves by itself, the contents still very much alive and fighting for space inside the tightly tied cloak. Soon we will have a bigger vessel to hold all this evil. Soon we will need a bigger vessel to hold all this evil, he says softly to himself and ponders at how such a problem could be resolved without losing another friend. As he gets up to stretch and unstiffen his rigid body, he moves slowly to the kitchen table where Root's remains were being held. We didn't get to know each other as much as I would have liked, but you were something incredible, Sid says, holding the bowl in both hands, hoping that somehow Root would be listening. Just then a colder wind than usual enters through the window, and Sid's going outside closes the shutter to trap what little heat the building still had. No need to freeze ourselves, Sid says again under his breath. The dead silence of the woods was anything but what he was used to growing up in the city of Rise. Knowing that a fire would draw any attention to the group, good or bad, it would be better to lie as low as they could. Sid returns to the cabin with an apple from the tree out back and proceeds to place a bar across the window from the inside just in case of heavy winds. After a few minutes pass, Sid finishes chewing on the apple as quietly as possible and returns to the boarded up window to find a spider building a web. Seeing this somehow brings a smile to his face, as if things were simpler and there was nothing he needed to worry about. As Sid stares at the spider crafting a web, agreeing that all of its plans for designs, a flash of light blue enters through the boarded window against the spider and its web. Quickly, Sid places his face against a split in the window's blockade, forgetting all about the spider. With web stretched along his face and eyes frantic to spot where the light had come from, Sid questions if he should alert the others just yet. Removing the web now stuck to his face, the spider swings furiously from its broken web, finally finding solid ground and wiggling its little legs at Sid and his disturbance. Sid quietly retrieves his common knife and opens the front door. Peering out from the cracked door, Sid strains to focus on the darkness, his fear telling him to wake the house, but his training and knowledge tells him to try to remain calm. Again, the blue light enters the sky, this time with a solid swoop on the ground. Its trail glows behind it and illuminates its silhouette of a black bird with blue pouring from its gaze at him. Root? Sid whispers to himself, knife gripped tightly in hand. Sid moved slowly, opening the door a bit further, this time still unsure what sort of situation he could be setting upon himself. Once more the bird moves its wings, spreading open as it takes to the air again. A ghostly white shade takes over Sid's face as the bird begins to write letters of a greeting within the tree line. As Sid speaks the written words made by the mysterious creature, he can't help but think how much it reminds him of Root once more. Hello, I see you are preparing for a long journey to restore life to a fallen Rutaga. Please, I wish to try to help. I mean you no harm in the slightest way. Sid's mouth recites the glowing trail before it faded back into the darkness. His eyes wide and disconnected from the swaying trees and growing winds that filled the air. I assure you that I am unable to help you in battle, as I am bound to the moon's core, and I must only observe from afar. But I have talked with the spirits of the earth, and they have forged you a weapon to help protect the ones that you care for. The words entered and exited the air as fast as Sid can read them, and with the last fading words, Sid finds himself standing, arms down, head back, mouth open, and his defenses completely open to the growing sounds coming from the trees. Suddenly, before he can react, he finds himself laid upon with what feels like pounds of lead. Sid stood helpless as the trees bent inward from all angles around him. The center of the meadow broke open and to show a giant hand reaching up out of the ground itself. With weak knees, Sid wobbled forward only to be pulled down once more harder than before. Breathing heavily and trying to keep his eyes open, he watched as the ground continues to build and mold itself like a hand like around the hand-like structure. A strange noise jolts Sid as he watches the mysterious creature that resembles a different type of Rutaga soar away, leaving Sid in the same crouched position as he was when he slept. Again, his eyes shook as the world in front of him begins to break away, and he finds himself back in the cabin with Jason kneeling beside him to wake him as he moved along, picking up the tied up cloak. Jace, I had the strangest dream, Sid says, his mind racing around as he didn't know where to start. I'll be right back, Sid barked, not waiting for a reply, in hopes that the dream was in fact a reality that awaited him outside. Stumbling to his feet and still feeling the effect of being abruptly awakened, he throws open the door, leaving a loud bang of the door behind him, in search of a weapon he may use to make him worthy of being part of the team. His legs almost give out as they have fallen asleep during the night, and he struggles to race to his prize, which is nowhere to be found. Only the soft, scarred grass lay beneath his hands as he combed it for further inspection. Jace's voice came from the front door. What are you doing out there? Nothing, Sid replied, demolished by his constant failure to achieve any sort of greatness, and collapsed onto his back before trying to bring himself to stand again. Jay stood at the door's edge watching Sid and feeling as if he was staring into a former mirror. Hey, I'm going to make us breakfast, buddy. You sit tight, okay? Jay said, hoping he wouldn't have to continue the conversation, knowing he wouldn't know what to say next. Yeah, great. I had an apple already, Sid replied, placing an arm over his eyes to darken out the now piercing light that beamed into them. Thwap! Sid's hand rang with as much pain as he had received in his training exercises. Wow! Sid yelped at an attempt to say anything. With worried caution of an enemy's blade upon him, he lowered his arm to sit up to see what had attacked him. As his eyes adjusted to the light, a heavy tealish green ring sat strongly against his palm. The pain was still pulsing from its arrival as Sid looked around to check once more for anything besides the open field of grass and dirt. What in the world? Sid said, his words acting on their own as he peered once more into the upward sky. A faint shade of black and blue vanished from his vision behind a cloud before he returns his gaze to the given gift. Pulling it from the imprint embedded in his palm, Sid flexes his fist before fitting it on his finger in an attempt to see what kind of gift it is. The ring fits perfectly, but still has no great power to show as Sid finds himself deprived of any special abilities that it may have. Well, rings don't just fall out of the sky, Sid says, trying to restore any type of hope it might bring, rubbing the welt left on the inside of his hand. He returned to find Zen and BC both stirring from their rest. BC's hair looks like a hurricane had attacked her, and Sid couldn't help but notice that it matched Jace's out-of-control hairstyle as well. How did everyone sleep last night? Zen's cheerful voice reached across the kitchen, looking at each of them for a description of their own answer to answer the standard question. BC shies away entirely from the subject and leaves to brush some of the knots out of her hair as Sid was bursting to share what his night held for him. The group listened to his story unfold, and they all came to understand as to how such a simple dream could bring such progress. I wonder if it was another Rutaga, Zen questioned, stroking his beard and eyeing the divine ring. I'm not sure it looked like one in a bird form, but there was something about it that makes me think differently, Sid responds, continuing to try to unlock any hidden potential the ring may have. I've heard stories about the earth spirits, but I thought they were just folklore, invented to occupy the child's imagination, Jace added, unable to give a hint of any sudden painful memory within his eyes. BC reappears back in the kitchen with the rest of the group, her hair partly maintained and curled up in a bun. What? It was starting to become a nuisance, and the knots weren't actually coming out either. It was for the best, okay? BC says, her voice raised. I like it. It suits you, Zen chuckles. Yeah, and now you don't have to worry about it getting in your eyes either, Sid says, sliding his fingers through his own short hair. It's different, but it looks good, Jace replies shyly, trying to not look directly at BC. Well, I'm glad you all approve. I wasn't sure if you guys would even notice, she says, now focusing on the oversized ring wrapped around Sid's finger. Whoa, what's that? Her reaction presenting plenty of intrigue. Sid explains once more that it was given to him by a strange moon creature in a dream, and that he thinks it is to help them on their mission. I still am not sure how this thing is supposed to work yet. They finish their meal that Jace had prepared, which held much to be desired compared to the dinner that Zen and Sid had made the night before, and began to ready themselves for the beginning of the adventure to resurrect Root. As Sid reaches for his trusty blade and belongings, the green gems on the ring begin to glow with the same trail of light the night bird did. His heart begins to race with excitement, and as he grabs hold of the worn hilt, the ring bursts with light and engulfs the entirety of the weapon itself. After a few seconds pass, Sid stands holding in a seemingly longer and heavier upgraded version of his own blade, but it feels as light as the one he is used to. Astonished, he turns to the others in disbelief with his surprised joy, and with a fire in his eyes, he receives the blade to his waist, and it reforms to its original shape. Finally, I can stand with you and fight for what I believe in, Sid says, with a grin bigger than the magical blade, and stands with pelvis popped. Everyone looks at each other for a second before moving towards the door. What? Come on. I can't have a moment, Sid whines, with his grin fading into a beaten down frown. If that's what you really want, BC giggles. Come on, let's go. Time's a wasting.